Hello. So we have done with majority of our chapters from our audit in 100 pages. So today we are doing the chapter internal management and operational audit. So now this chapter is actually divided into three parts: internal audit, management audit, and operational audit. And usually it comes for about 4 marks, 5 marks, or 0 marks, and average of 2.7 marks. Less on this chapter, and as usual I have again made the mnemonics. I have made the mnemonics for this chapter also in 3 pages. So I hope this will help you cover the chapter, and let's start with our chapter. Okay, great. So your internal audit, management audit, and operational audit, this is approximately 51 pages in your ICI study module. So first you have to understand what internal audit is. So your internal audit provides independent assurance on the effectiveness of internal control and risk management processes. On the effectiveness of your internal control, that is effectiveness of internal controls and your RM processes to enhance governance and achieve organizational objectives. So to enhance governance and to achieve organizational objectives. Okay, so what you have to understand: internal controls and your risk management processes. Now your applicability of internal control, to whom all internal audit is applicable. So first of all, for every listed entity, internal audit becomes mandatory. Okay, what about unlisted public companies, sir? Okay, what about unlisted public companies? So you have to remember 25, 50, 100, 200, 25, 50, 100, 200. That is 25, 50, 100, 200. So your limits are 25, 50, 100 and 200. So unlisted public company with outstanding deposits greater than or equal to, what do you have to remember? That over here the limits are greater than or equal to. It is equal to also. So either greater than or equal to 25 crores, your paid up share capital is greater than or equal to 50 crores, your outstanding loans from banks or public financial institutions is greater than or equal to 100 crores, and your turnover is greater than or equal to 200 crores. So if either of these limits, okay, it is not an and condition. All do not have to be satisfied. If any of these conditions are satisfied, internal audit will become applicable to you. And for private company, if you're outstanding from loans, banks, and outstanding loans from your banks and public financial institutions is greater than or equal to 100 crores, and your turnover, sorry, not and or your turnover is greater than or equal to 200 crore, in such a case internal audit will also be applicable to the private company. So what do you have to remember? Basically you have to remember that for listed entities, all listed entities, then we did 25, 50, 100, 200, 25, 50, 100, 200. That is for your unlisted public company. Now this is your unlisted public company. What you have to do? What for private company? For private company, you only have to remember these two limits, that is your 100 crores and your 200 crore limits. Okay, so this is your applicability of internal audit. So applicability of internal audit is 25, 50, 100, 200. 25, 50, 100, 200 listed. Then you have 25, 50, 100, 200 and again 100 and 200. Okay, now next is your objectives and scope of your internal audit. Objectives and scope of your internal audit is first of all monitoring of internal controls. Of course, this was in the definition only, that is your internal controls. So it is monitoring of internal controls. Then if you remember, it was risk management was also in the definition. So therefore, second is your risk management. Next is examining of financial and operating information. You have to check the financial and operating information. Next, you did governance, to enhance governance. Okay. Then you have review of operation activity, review of operating activities. And last is your review of compliance with laws and regulations. LNR stands for your laws and regulations. Okay. Now, who can be internal auditor? Okay. Another thing that I forgot to tell you, that all our keys in this chapter are related to love. So, objective and scope of internal audit is IRFOGC, that is, I recently found out groom cheating. IRFOGC. So I is your internal control, R is your risk management, F is your financial and operating information examination, O is your operating activity review, G is governance, and C is compliance with laws and regulation that you have to review. So I recently found out groom cheating, IRFOGC. Okay. Next is who can be the internal auditor. Who can be the internal auditor? Any CA, cost accountant, or other professional decided by the board, or your internal auditor can even be an employee. That means even people within your organization can act as an internal auditor. Okay, now what are your responsibilities of internal auditor? Responsibilities of internal auditor is first of all keep knowledge up to date regarding the business. That means the business that he's going to audit, he needs to know what are the basic developments, what are the recent developments about the business. Next, operate independently of the accounting staff. Since he will be checking those entries, he has to operate independently from them, because it is possible that it is from your employee only, from of the company. It is possible that your internal auditor is an employee of the company, therefore they have segregated that he should not be from the accounting staff. Next, observe facts and bring them to the notice of authorities. Of course, he will do some analysis, he will check some samples, so that if he notices any discrepancy, that will be brought to the notice of authorities. Must enjoy an independent status. That means whatever opinion he gives, he should have an independent view on it. Okay. Now all these keys I've already put at the end. You once you purchase the notes, you will get those keys also. Next is your scope of internal auditors work includes review of. Scope of internal auditors work includes review of. First of all is your internal control system and procedure. Second is custodianship. Okay, so what we are talking about is the scope. Scope is second is custodianship and safeguarding of assets. So first is your internal controls. Second is related to your assets. Your third is relevance and reliability of information. Relevance. So next is with regards to information. Fourth is your organization structure. Fifth is utilization of resources, and sixth is accomplishment of goals and objectives. So your scope of internal auditor, first is your internal control. Then second, if you remember, that was with regards to your assets, that is safeguarding of assets. Then third that we did was with regards to information, that is reliability of information. Fourth is your organization structure. Fifth is your utilization of resources. And sixth is accomplishment of goals and objectives. Okay, so let's see the key that we made for this. Responsibilities of internal auditor. So responsibilities of internal auditor is one, not engagement occasion. Okay, so that is one, not engagement occasion. OKEO. So O is observe facts and bring them to notice. K is knowledge up to date regarding the business. This was your first point, if you remember. Enjoy an independent status, and O for operate independently. Then next, what did we do? Scope of internal auditor. Scope of internal auditor work includes review of. So your key is ICRG, that is I carried our broom. I carried our broom. I for internal control, C for custodianship, O for organization structure, U for utilization of resources, R for relevance and reliability of information, and G is your goals and objectives with regards to your accomplishment. Okay. Now next is integrity, objectivity, and independence of internal auditor. So he should be free from undue influences which force to deviate from truth. That means if there is any influence because of which he is not able to report truthfully, all of this should be avoided. Resist pressure in setting scope of audit. That means the internal auditor himself should decide what should be the scope of the audit be. He should check that what all areas they have to check in how much depth. He shall be honest, truthful, and person of high integrity. Shall not derive under personal benefit from his position. That means if because of being an internal auditor, if there is some chances of getting any personal gains, he shall not be doing those. And next is shall not allow prejudice or bias to override his objectivity, especially while reporting an opinion. That means he should not be biased towards someone or towards a particular area. He should be objective about this. Next is your qualities of internal auditor. What are the qualities of internal auditor? So you should have basic knowledge of technology and commercial practices, expertise for evaluating control system, accounting and financial expertise. Next, basic knowledge of taxation, laws and cost accounting, understanding management principle and technique, and last is your confidentiality. So these are your 6 qualities of your internal auditor. Okay, I'm not getting too deep into the keys because this is not a very important chapter. If you still want the keys, you will get it in the notes, so don't worry about that. If you're watching this one day before the exam, you can order soft copy, you will get it immediately. Okay, next is reporting on internal audit. Reporting on internal audit is reporting is done in two stages as per the standards of internal audit, that is your SIA. So at the end of every audit assignment, so reporting is done at two stages. First is at the end of every audit assignment, report is issued regarding manner in which assignment conducted and the finding, that is in what manner was the assignment conducted, that means in what manner was the audit conducted and what are the findings that have come from it. And next is on a quarterly basis a comprehensive report of all internal audit reports is prepared by your CIA and submitted to your audit committee, that is your chief internal auditor. It is prepared by chief internal auditor and submitted to your audit committee. So first is one. So I'll tell you first. For example, I have worked in internal audit during my articleship with Deloitte. So if, for example, if you got an area of revenue, so you check the entire revenue processes. You made your report and you submitted. This is your number one report. Now during the year we did revenue, we did procurement, we did payroll, we did fixed assets. Now all of these reports combined together on a quarterly basis. On a quarterly basis, we will highlight the important points from each report and we will make a separate report. So a comprehensive report on all IA reports, okay, is prepared by your CIA and submitted, chief internal auditor submitted to audit committee. Okay. Now next is key elements of your internal audit report. What are the key elements? What are the key features of your internal audit report? So first of all, overview of objectives, scopes and approach of audit. So it should be an overview of what are the objectives, scope and approach of the audit. That overview you have to give. Next is summary of corrective action for each observation. That means whatever observations you've come across in the report, you have to give a corrective action. That is, how should this be corrected? Next is nature of assurance, if any, which can be derived from the observation. That means what is the assurance? What is the assurance? What is the level of assurance that we can derive from these observations that we have noted? Fact that internal auditor has been conducted in accordance with your SIA. SIA is your standards on internal audit. And next is summary of key observations. Okay. Now your internal audit report, draft internal audit report to be shared with the auditee. Auditee, that means the client whom you are auditing, with the auditee before issue of the final report, and there is no particular report format. Next is internal auditor monitor. Internal auditor monitors prior audit issues through action taken report of previous audit. That means if the internal auditor has done previous reports and he has suggested some corrective actions, he will check whether those corrective actions have actually been implemented or not. How will he check those? He will check those through action taken report on previous audit. So there is a separate report which states that boss, this you had suggested this action and this is how we have implemented it. Next, documentation to be maintained. So copies of draft and final audit report and management action plan countersigned by respective management personnel. So management action plan means what are they going to do from their side based on the report that I've submitted? What is their action plan? How are they going to reduce the deficiencies? This has to be signed by the person who is responsible, who is going to do these actions. Okay, next is your relation between internal and external auditor. So in this chapter, your entire whatever is in blue is with regards to your internal audit. Okay, so we will be finishing with our first part, that is your internal audit. So overlap between work of internal auditor and external auditor. Evaluation done by internal auditor with respect to internal controls, verification of assets, etc. is also required to be done by your external auditor. That means both of them do somewhat the similar same task. They also have common tasks. Statutory requirement as per section 138, where audit committee and the internal auditor formulate scope, function and periodicity of your internal audit. So that is what is the scope. That means what all areas will they be checking, the functions and the periodicity, that means how often. Next, however, obligatory for stat auditor to examine scope and effectiveness of work carried out by internal auditor. The stat auditor should check, that means that how effective is the work that is carried out by your internal auditor. Next, practice of audit being conducted jointly by internal auditor is of great assistance to stat auditor if it is conducted jointly. And last, stat auditor may adopt less extensive procedure. That means if he believes that the internal audit, if the internal audit function have done their function properly, in such a case he may have to perform less extensive procedures since he can rely on their work. So also read essay 610, that is using work of internal auditor. We have already covered this in our series. If you are looking for other chapters, you can go to our playlist and you will find for all group 2 subjects plus audit. Okay, now what is the difference between internal auditor and external auditor? So first is your meaning. That is audit function performed by separate department, whereas external auditor is function performed by an independent body. So internal audit can also be done by a separate department within the organization. Second is your examination. So internal audit checks your operational efficiency, while your external auditor checks, they only have to do with regard to your financial statements. So accuracy and validity of your financial statements. Third is appointment. So internal auditor is appointed by management, while external auditor, that is your stat auditor, is appointed by your members. Fourth is your user of report, that is your internal auditor. In case of internal auditor, it is your management, while in external auditor, it is your stakeholder. That means the person who uses the report. In internal audit, it is used by the management. This report is not released, and your external audit is for the shareholders. Next is your period. So internal audit goes throughout the year, because throughout the year you are doing different functions. Sometimes you're doing revenue, sometimes you're doing procurement, sometimes you're doing fixed asset, sometimes you're doing treasury, sometimes you're doing order to cash. So all of these different components, so therefore it is continuous, it is throughout the year. While your external audit is once in a year. And last is with regards to status. So it could be an employee, that means who can do the internal auditor, while external auditor not allowed to be an employee. It is not allowed. Okay, with this we are done with your internal audit, and now we are going on to management audit. Okay, so your management audit, desirability of management audit. So first of all, what is management audit? The audit that is done to check whether decisions taken by the management, are sound, whether it is in the beneficial of the business. So it is tool to improve management performance by recognizing facts and information about management presented after appropriate examination, verification, and valuation by professionally qualified and competent people. Okay, so tool to improve management performance, it is basically used to improve management performance. Okay, so need. So what is the desirability of management audit? First is your need for detecting and overcoming current managerial deficiency. That is whatever the current managerial deficiencies are, and how effective management functions are. If you remember functions of management, your planning, organizing, directing, controlling, etc. Okay, so these are your functions of management. Next, periodic management audits can pinpoint problems. That means they can help you find problems. So pinpoint problems as they are developing from a small scale. Next, assist organization in accomplishing the desired objectives. Of course, if there are certain deficiencies in your management, you will not be able to accomplish your objectives. Next is helpful in case of ailing industries. Ailing industries means those industries which are suffering or which are loss making, to isolate the problem and account for their ailment. Next, isolate the problem means separate the problem and identify how to correct this. Often conducted prior to making investment in an entity, merger, or acquisition. So to check how efficient, how sound the management is, this audit is done before you make any investment in a company, or you are purchasing or merging with another company. Okay, now difference between management audit and your operational audit. Okay, so management audit and operational audit. Operational audit will come later in the chapter, but we'll still do it. So management audit is with regards to quality of managing, while your operational audit is with regards to your quality of operations. Of course, they want to check that how effective are your operations functioning. Next is audit of management. Management audit means you are auditing the management, while operational audit you are auditing for the management, because this report will be used by the management. Your focus is quality of decision making. Your focus will be of what is the quality of decision making of the management, while in operational audit your focus will be the three E's is your effectiveness, your efficiency, and your economy. Okay, So this is your difference between management audit and operational audit. Management auditor to have knowledge about purpose for which the organization is created. If you are auditing the management, of course you need that information. The internal controls, production planning, factory layout design and installed capacity, decision making process and financial management of the organization. Okay, all of these keys I have made the PDF, don't worry, you will be getting those. Okay. Now next is organizing management audit and your what is your audit program. So first is your device statement of policy. First is device statement of policy. Second is location of audit function within the organization. Then you allocate personnel, then staff training program, time and other aspects, and your frequency. So your audit program should cover all of these points. Okay, so first is devise the statement of policy, second is locate the audit function, third is allocation of personnel, fourth is staff training program, fifth is time and other aspects, and last is your frequency, that is how often do we need to do this. Conducting a management audit. So first is getting facts through interview. That is only when you talk to people will you understand, will you get some knowledge. So that is getting facts through interview. And next is measuring performance through management audit questionnaire. So either you will give them a questionnaire where you have questions in the form of yes, no, or not applicable, and you will give these to people so that they can mark their answers and you have a more broader understanding. Next is your management audit report. Okay, so talking about management audit report, so basically there are four categories. There are four categories of your management audit report. So first is which is prepared after a visit to a unit. After you visit a unit, the report that you make, this is that. Next is periodic report, that is summarize main audit findings and recommendations. If you remember, we did this in your internal audit also, where we did quarterly report. So over here also it is periodic report which summarizes the main audit findings and recommendations from different reports. Next is your special investigation and inquiry report. So if there is any special investigation required into a company, it's your management audit report. And last is your annual audit report. So these are your four categories of reports. Now there are also four types of reports. It can either be oral, it can be a interim written. Interim written means middle of the year, it is a written report. Then there is a regular written, that means this is a normal report, and there is a summary written. So because at times it is not possible to read some such huge reports, another summary report is prepared so that only the main facts and information is highlighted. Next is your format of report. So first is your title, second is objective, that is objective of the audit. Then third is your scope, that means what all areas you have covered. Fourth is findings, conclusions, and opinion. That means by doing the audit, what have been your observations, what have been your conclusions. Next is recommendation. That means in case of any deficiency, if you find any issues in this, you will also recommend that what this is how you can correct it. So those are your recommendations. Next is your auditees views. Auditees views means your client's view. That means what do they feel about about these findings that you have. And last is your summary, that is just to summarize the entire report. Okay, conducting a management audit. So your management auditor, MA is your management auditor, meet with the management for discussing audit findings. Okay, so this is your concluding a management audit. That means you're ending an audit and discussing the assist in determining appropriate recommendations. So because when you discuss the audit findings, it will help you determine what the appropriate recommendations are and discussing possible consequences of recommended actions. Generally, oral recommendation to members of top management. So generally it is an oral recommendation. Recommendations are backed by your cost benefit analysis. That means if I'm telling you that boss install a new system, I will also have to show you that boss currently you are losing so much amount, and by purchasing this system you will incur some amount, but there will be a benefit. That means there will be an overall benefit. So you have to give them a cost benefit analysis. That means the recommendation that I'm giving, it is actually beneficial for the company or not. Then steps to prepare your management audit report. First is plan the report. Second is supporting information. Third is prepare draft report. Fourth is write and issue your final report. Of course, after draft report only you will get a final report. Then next is follow up of audit report, and last is action of management. Okay, so these are your 6 steps to make a management audit report. Okay. Next is behavioral aspects encountered in management audit. What are the behavioral aspects encountered while doing your management audit. So what are the first of all nature and causes? What are the nature and causes of these behavioral aspects? That means while doing management audits, some people might not like it. So why? So that is relationship conflict between your management auditor and other person. Your management auditor may be an employee of the company, and when he's checking other employees, it may cause that, boss, you are an employee, who are you to check me? So other employees might feel that your management auditor lacks the auditing authority since he is also an employee. Management auditor might feel their method is their only solution to the problem. So they might feel that, boss, whatever solution I am giving, only that is correct. You do not back answer to me. What I'm saying, you have to listen to it. Next is resistance to change. Auditor is looked upon as an instrument for recommending changes, of course, because we will find deficiencies and we will tell you that, boss, you're doing it wrong. I will tell you how to do this. So therefore, it is looked upon for recommending changes. Next is control, and nobody likes changes. Auditees might fear, auditee, that means the client or the person who are you auditing, might fear that your management auditor report may create incompetent impression on top management. That means if the management auditor determines any deficiencies, you might feel that the top management might feel that you are not doing your work properly, you are not competent for this job. Hence, it may lead to breeding of antagonism on the part of your auditee. It may lead to the breeding of antagonism. That means hatred on the part of auditee. Now, what are the causes of this hatred? What are the causes of antagonism? First is fear of criticism. Fear of criticism stemming from adverse audit findings. You fear criticism. That means when someone says something not good to you. Then fear of changes in day-to-day working habit because of changes resulting from your audit recommendations. Any punitive actions by superiors prompted by reported deficiency. That means if the auditor has reported certain deficiencies and they decide that, boss, we will fine you for this, we will do punitive action. So therefore, in such a case, this is your cause of antagonism. Next is insensitive audit practices. Reports which are overly critical, reports which focus on deficiencies only. That means if your report only focuses on deficiencies, or it does not, it is too critical. That means even tiny mistakes you have all put in the report. In such a case, it is insensitive audit procedures. And last is your hostile audit style. So a cold and distant lack of understanding of auditor's problem and absence of empathy. That means if you do not understand what problem he is facing, and you are just issuing your report, you are just giving a recommendation, you are not trying to understand why the problem is arising or why they are not able to correct it, this is your hostile audit style. That means not a very friendly audit style. So what are the solutions? So there is a need to demonstrate that. So what are the solution to this? That they should demonstrate that it is part of overall program to meet higher level of organization. That means, sir, whatever I'm doing, it is not for my personal gain. It is to meet the organization's overall needs for maximum constructive benefit. Objective of the review is to provide maximum service in all managerial dimensions. That means the review, you have to tell them that, boss, this review, this audit is not to find out your deficiencies. This audit we are doing so that we achieve the best. Review will be conducted with minimum interference with regular operation. That means my regular operation shall not be hampered. That means my day-to-day business because of this audit shall not be hampered. Responsible officers will have opportunity to review findings and recommendation. That means you're trying to tell, boss, whatever recommendation I give you, whatever findings that I find, you will first review and only then I will put it in the report. Okay, so that is your constructive criticism, reporting methods, and your participative approach. That means it should not be a hostile environment. Okay, with this, we are also done with management audit and coming to our last part of the chapter. Last part of the chapter is your operational audit. Now, your operational audit is a systematic process. It is a systematic process of evaluating an organization. Remember, while we were doing the difference, while studying the focus, we did that there are three E's. That is your effectiveness, efficiency, and economy of operations. Under management's control and reporting to appropriate person, the results of the evaluation and your recommendations. Okay, so now this is your continuous improvement cycle of operational audit. If you remember this, we have also done in your SCMP. Okay, that is your, it is called your PDCA cycle. That is your plan, do, check, and act. So this is called your PDCA. In SCMP, if you remember, it is called your Deming's wheel. Okay, so this is your PDCA cycle. Plan, do, check, act. Now, difference between operational audit and internal audit. So, operational audit is concerned with the appraisal of operations. We only want to check operations, while internal auditors check whether controls are well designed and in place. If you remember, controls and governance. Next, it is a constructive function. That means your operational audit gives a suggestion for improvement. That means how can you improve. Therefore, it is a constructive function. While your internal auditor check that both all my assets are safe or not. So therefore, that is a protective function. That is safeguarding of assets. So operational is constructive, internal audit is protective. Mainly deals in qualitative aspects. Your operational audit will not be related to numbers a lot, and while your internal audit focuses on your quantitative aspect. They will always give you amount, that is what is the possible amount of the issue. Modern internal auditing suggests that there is no difference in your internal and operational audit. So your modern internal auditing says that there is no difference. Both of them are same. What you check in internal audit, you also check in operational audit and vice versa. Okay, now is the difference between operational audit and financial audit. So emphasizes on effectiveness and efficiency. Of course, we did this. Your financial audit focuses on whether historical information has been entered correctly or not. Your operational audit primarily it is for management, while your financial audit is sent to all stakeholders and reporting plus suggestions for improvement. As I told you, operational audit is a constructive function. That means we want you to improve. So we will give a report. We will also give you suggestions for improvement. While financial audit, it will only be reporting findings as an end objective. That means you will only do findings. You do not have to recommend. Okay. Now the question is why operational audit? So why operational audit? Because it fills the void that conventional information sources. Now your conventional information sources, whom do you get your information from? That is any departmental managers, any routine performance reports, any internal audit reports, etc. etc. So these conventional information sources, they fail to fill the void. The shortcomings of these sources can be stated as under. So what we are studying as why should we conduct operational audit? So when you want to convince that boss, why should you conduct operational audit? You will have to tell them that boss, the current system that you are using, it has certain deficiencies. So we are studying what are the deficiencies in them. So managers are too preoccupied with implementations of plans and achieving of targets. They are preoccupied with achieving targets and they do not have time to convey this information. Managers generally relied upon for transmitting information rather than analyzing the situation. So your management are looked upon only for transmitting information but not analyzing that what has to be done. Next is information transmitted by managers may be biased. Of course, if you think that you are a manager of your own department, now you will not give any negative findings about your department to the higher authority. Next is conventional internal auditor reports are often routine and mechanical in character. That means what you do, you see last year what did we check? You copy the same report, change the figures, check some samples, and you submit the report. So therefore, it is routine and mechanical in character. Annual audited accounts only provide you a true and fair view. So if you're not conducting your management or your operational audit, that means you're relying on your audited accounts. Now your audited accounts only check true and fair view. That means whether everything has been presented correctly or not. You do not get an idea about the effectiveness, efficiency, or economy of the company. And last is surveys and special investigations. So these are also your sources of information. So any surveys or special investigation, these are nice, but the issue is they are occasional in nature. That means only sometimes they will happen. You do not get investigated very frequently. So it is occasional in nature. Okay, next is your types of operational audit. So functional audit, organization audit, and your special assignments. What are the qualities of an operational auditor? First is he should be inquisitive since he has very little information about the operation. That means he should have a very questioning mind. He should ask everything. A kid is incentive. He will ask, sir, why this, why this, why this, why this? Ask questions. Next is should ask the who, why, and how of everything. That means who does this, why do they do this, and how do they do this. Next is persistent and possesses an attitude of skepticism. That means you should have an attitude of professional skepticism. Next is imbibe a collaborative and constructive approach. Collaborative and constructive approach rather than a fault finding approach. That means your objective should not be to find fault. Your objective should be constructive. That means to improve. And last is able to obtain cooperation of person involved in operation. That means, of course, since you will be doing their audit, you need their cooperation. You will be requiring data, you will be requiring questionnaire, you will be requiring some information. So you should be able to obtain cooperation from them because you are hampering their daily activities. Next is objectives of operational audit. Objectives of operational audit is appraisal of controls, evaluation of performance, appraisal of objectives and controls, and appraisals of organization structure. So these are your four objectives. Okay. So most significant since controls are unobstructed omnipresence in the organization. Omnipresence means they are present everywhere, just like God. So appraisal of control. The next is evaluation of performance depends on acceptable standards. Of course, if you remember in SCMP also, when you do performance measurement, when you do performance evaluation, you compare your actual performance to some standard. Then next is appraisal of objectives and controls. So your areas are productivity, personal workload measurement, cost, quality of work. Appraisal of organization structure, whether it conforms with the objectives, whether line of responsibility is clear. That means which person is responsible for what, whether match responsibility with authority. That means whatever responsibility you have, does that person have the necessary authority to do these responsibilities or not. And check that responsibility and authority don't overlap between different persons. That means the responsibility of one person shall not be a responsibility of other person, because in such a case both of them will clash. Okay. And coming to our last part of the chapter, that is review of systems and procedure. So system is a system is a set of objectives together with relations between objects and their attributes connected to each other and their environment in such a forms in such a manner to form a whole. So it is different items that come together to form a whole. Procedures are the means by which policies are implemented. Procedures are the ways by which policies are implemented. Steps to accomplish an objective by means of a system. What are the steps to accomplish an objective? How do you accomplish an objective? Through a system. First is design a system to achieve main objective. Operate the system and check that the system is operating as intended. So first of all, you define, then you operate, and then check whether it is correct or not. Procedures are standardized at lower levels because some procedures are standardized. That means a fixed routine is given that you have to do this as like this. Why? Because there exists an economic advantage of specifying precise uniform action to be taken by a large number of people for repetitive jobs. That means for any work that is repetitive, it is better. You have more economic advantage if you specify your particular actions to be performed. Next, helps in precise control over employees' activities. And last is element of discretion has to be reduced as far as possible. What you mean by discretion is where they have to use their own judgment. So this element has been reduced if all of them has been defined. Next is review of systems and procedures. Helps improve the methods to get away from traditional ways. Auditor should ask himself that is the function properly located in the organization. That means is it at the correct place or not? Do the staff personnel have necessary training and expertise to perform the work? Has a defined program been established and has been taken for its attentive accomplishment? That means whether a proper program has been there, and does someone work on it to check whether it is being implemented or not, whether it is being accomplished or not. And last is productivity satisfactory? So that means whatever productivity is there, is it as per standards or not? Next is evaluation of systems and procedures. So systems procedures means all current requirements. Is it operating effectively and what is the degree of effectiveness? So whether it is effectively and how effective it is, what is the degree of effectiveness? And last is your management audit questionnaire. Management audit questionnaire aims at comprehensive and constructive examination of an organization's management and its assigned task. Its primary objective is to highlight weakness and deficiencies of the organization. So it is a questionnaire where there are some questions and there are three possible answers, either yes, no, or not applicable. So usually the questions are designed in such a way that if a person answers yes, it indicates that the specific area under study is functioning in an acceptable manner and there is no written application. If the answer is no, it indicates that there is unacceptable performance and should be explained in writing, and not applicable, that means that the question does not apply. So that means if I had to make a questionnaire for you, I will be asking you, are you studying 8 hours in a day? Are you being effective in your studies? Do you remember what you are studying? Do you revise what you are studying the next day? So if you answer no to this, that means there are some things that we need to work on. Okay, so this is your keys. These are your keys for this chapter. Okay, so you will get this. Don't worry. All of these are related to your love. For example, honeymoon outside office, other caste questionable. So okay, so you have all of these keys so that this will help you remember the chapter, and I will see you in the next video.